for the number of malchus, and the number of malchus for lashes is only learned out from v'shaftum, with tipping the scales with one additional dayan, and therefore ultimately making dine makos with 3. So what was Ula's din that needs v'yitzdiku shnayim v'yirshu shnayim? So that's what we learned last week. Remez leidim zayim min atayra. How do you know that there's a din of edim zayimim? So the Gemara says, Ren leidim zayimim. You need a hint to edim zayimim. V'aksiv kasher zomam. It's a fair pasuk, kasher zomam. So the Gemara says, you're right. Remez leidim zayimim shaloikin minayim. How do you know that in certain cases where you think that they shouldn't get lashes, meaning what they conspired to do, what they intended to do, was really not something to get lashes? Namely, the Gemara explains in the beginning of Makos, they wanted to make someone a chalal. They wanted to say that his parents were a grusha with a kohen. Minayin shaloikin, dechsiv yitztikos hatzadik v'yirshus harasha. That's what these additional psukim are coming to tell you. V'yitztikos hatzadik, you make the righteous person righteous v'yirshus harasha. Mishum v'yitztikos hatzadik v'yirshus harasha. So that's why you give malchus v'ayim benakos harasha? What does that mean? What are you doing wrong? So the Gemara says, no, you're reading the psukim wrong. Ela edim shir shiwas hatzadik. The story goes as follows. There were edim that lied. They were marshia hatzadik. They made up a testimony and they made a tzaddik into a rasha. Hirshuas hatzadik. Va'asu edi achrina v'yitzdikus hatzadik. And other edim came through and gave the facts correct and showed that the first set of edim were liars. D'meikar v'shavinu lahanach rishayim. And he made the first set of edim rishayim. So that's what the Gemara says. V'hayim benakos harasha. That's where we give lashes, namely the first sugi in Makkos, that even in a situation where you can't fulfill kasher zamam, because you can't make these edim into a chalal because they're not kohanim, they're Yisraelim, and even if they were kohanim, you can. How do you know that you still give them malchus? That's the pasuk. V'yitzdikus hatzadik v'yirshus harasha v'hayim benakos harasha. Then we give them a hakah. Then we give them malchus. So that's what this din of ula is. So says the Gemara. Well, of course you give them malchus. So again, last week we pointed out a fundamental machloikis between 2 days in Tosfos in Makos and Daf Beis and Aleph. How do we understand the nature of this halacha? Is it exeris hakosav, that even though you can't fulfill kasher zomam, but we still give malchus? Or is it that no, the malchus are now representing and saying kasher zomam? Why should that be? Because all kasher zomam needs to do is to create a deterrent so that these edim are not going to lie, that they're going to be scared. And malchus is enough of a deterrent. Or the other day it says, no, there is no kasher zamam here. Why? Because kasher zamam is not a deterrent. It's only what you're going to give, and what you intended to deliver is what you're going to get. And if you can't fulfill that, so then maybe there's a gzeres hakasa that you still get an onesh, but it's not to fulfill kasher zamam, and it's not actually kasher zamam, and that's going to have ramifications la halacha in areas of halacha that might be totally and dependent on hazama, like we spoke about. What about if some of the questions that we ask the Eidim, the Drishas and the Chakiros, the Gemara tells us later on in Sanhedrin, is based on Eidushat Yachol Azima? I have to know when, I have to know what time, I have to know the date. Why? Because if other Eidim come in and say, well, how could you be testifying about this date when you were with us? So the whole purpose of a Chakira, the Gemara says, of Zman, of all those questions about the time, Ezo Shah, Ezo Yom, Ezo Chodesh, is all in order to achieve Eidushat Yachol Azima. That's what the Chiddush of the Nadi Yehuda was last week that we said. Nadi Yehuda had a case of Znus, and the Eidim didn't know. They said Eini Yodeya by one of the Chakiros. They said we don't know. So says the Nadi Yehuda Chiddush Nifli. He said, well, 1 second. According to 1 day in Tosfos and Makos, that's learning what? That it's not to fulfill kasher zamam. There is no kasher zamam. And the malchus is not going to... So any time that there's no kasher zamam, so you don't need the chakiros. So that's what the Nod Yehuda was makel based on that day in Tosfos, that half of the edus doesn't have hazama, and therefore the stringencies of hazama, like chakiros, wouldn't be necessary. Fine. We pointed out that these two versions of how to learn the Gemara, is it a fulfillment of kasher zamam? Or is it just a gzeres hakosiv now that Ula is saying, even though you're not fulfilling kasher zamam, you still get malchus? So we ended the sugya last week and we said, well, you're going to have a potential major nafkamina. What happens if the following case? You were only able to be mazim one guy. So the Mishnah in Makos tells us, ad sheyuzmu is kulan. You have to be mazim everyone there. So let's say we have a case of a ben grusha and a ben chalutza, and we're only mazim one of the Eidim that were made about the Ben Grusha Ben Chalutza. If you understand, like the day in Taisis, that it's part of Parshas Hazama, so he's off the hook, because you can't be Mekayim Parshas Hazama. If you understand that, no, it's Xeris HaKosav Ula is telling you that you get Malkus, so it could very well be that he can go independently on his own and still get Malkus, because that drasha to get the Malkus, he's an independent entity for. Good? Says Tosfos, so now the Gemara goes on, the end of the Gemara. The Gemara says, so what do you need a pasuk for? Again, so we need a pasuk for this, right? So you need a pasuk to tell you that you get Malkus. Ask the Gemara, V'tepukle, see where the gimel of the Rambam is, V'tepukle miloisane. Of course you should get Malkus. You violated a losase. And any time a person violates a losase in the Torah, a lav, he gets Malkus, asks the Gemara. Says the Gemara, no, not so fast. Malkus has a lot of rules and regulations. Malkus, mishum dahavale lav she'en bo maisa, v'chol lav she'en bo maisa, ein loikin alav. No. If it wasn't for Ula's drasha of the Imtzikus HaTzadik v'Yershuas HaRasha by Eidim Zaymimim by a Ben Grusha Ben Chalutza, like we just explained, that the Gemara comes and tells me a drasha that I give Malkus, I would have thought that you don't get Malkus here. Why? Even though he violated a losase. What did he violate? Losana b'reich shaker. You can't lie about your friend. You can't give false edus. You violated a losase. Yeah, but that losase is without a maisa. All it is dibur. So if so the Gemara says I wouldn't have gotten lashes. Comes along Ula's din, v'hoyu ben akos Rasha, that even though it doesn't fit the bill and fit the rules of regulations of classic Malkus, over here you get Malkus. Comes along Taisus over here in the second Taisus on the daf, and he points out another addition, another idea that the Gemara could have said. V'hu adin Taisus dirmaskel mishum da'avalav shema ma'isa. So again, I need the Xeris HaKosav because it was trumping the rules of classic Malkus. Like we said, you need dumya delav de chasima. The Torah learns out that Malkus are close by in proximity in the pasuk of lo sachsom shor bedisho. You can't muzzle an ox when you're grazing with it. So you need dumya de lav de chasima. If it's a lav she'en bo maisa, if it's a transgression that doesn't have an action, so then you're not going to get lashes on that. Tosfos says, 1 second, there's another rule of things that you don't get malchus for. Mishum dahava le lav she'en bo maisa. V'hu adin dahava motza lemeimar mishum dahava le lav shenitan la'asharis misas bezdin. Tosfos says, the Gemara didn't only have to ask. There are really two essential problems with the lav of losana why you can't get the onish over here of malchus. Number one is because it's a lav shem b'maisa. Number two, that same lav is a lav shenit and lazharas misas best. So Tosfos goes on to say, and Tosfos says, yeah, the Gemara could have said that in a chanami. The Gemara could have said it, but it didn't say that. So if you look, what? If it's a lav shenita lazharis misas bezdin? Lav shenita lazharis misas bezdin loken alav? If we get malchus by a lav shenita, let me explain first what a lav shenita lazharis misas bezdin is. A lav shenita lazharis misas bezdin means this lav is not only, it's not like nevela. It's not like treif. Treif, no matter what you do, the worst it could be is malchus. You're always going to get malchus for that. Let me ask you a following question. If I work with an animal on Shabbos, what's the isser for working with an animal? It's called mechamer. Mechamer achar behemto b'Shabbos. That's not necessarily as severe as me digging a hole myself when I'm just trying to get the animal to do it. It's still a lo saseh, but it's not as severe as one of the Lamites Malachos. It's not in Rabbi Ribiad's book of the 39 Malachos. Mechamer achar behemto. Yet the Gemara says in Shabbos, towards the end of Shabbos, on Daf Kuf Mem Zayin, the Gemara says, mechamer doesn't get malchus. Why? Because the lav of mechamer, of lo sasa kol malacha b'yoyim HaShabbos, of not doing malacha on Shabbos, is a lav shenitan lazharas misas bezdin. That same lav, that same isser, is an Isser that sometimes you'll find that Isser will deliver Misa. So the Gemara comes up with a new klal that any time you have a lav, even if you're not involved in the action, that's the real McCoy, that's going to get me Misa. And I didn't actually dig the hole with my hand or plant the seeds with my hand, but I did it with the animal. Says the Gemara, such a lav cannot be now deliver Malchus because that lav also sometimes gives Misa. That's what the Gemara says. That's what the klal of lav shenita and lazharas misas bezdin ain lokin alav. Okay? You could have different versions of this concept, but that's what the idea is. What's the mucker for that? Again, not dumi de lav de chasima. The same. All the rules of Malchus are all coming. Lavani tekla essay. It's all the same. The same is so. Yeah.
Azharas misas beis is referring to a pasuk is saying you get misa for it, or what does that mean? Azharas.
It just means something that will deliver misa. And that azhar, that warning, is not only for Malchus, it's also for Misa's Bezdin. Okay?
And then what happens?
You can't get lashes. You're an Avarian, but you don't get lashes. So that's what Tosa is saying over here. Were it not for Losana to also be a lav shein bo ma'aseh, says Tosa, I have another reason why I can't get Malchus over here. I can't get lashes over here. Because sometimes what? This Isser that I'm violating will get me what? Will get me Misa. Namely, when will it get me Misa in our case? If I try to kill a guy. If I try to give Edis about Misa. Says Taisus, this is also a good example of a lav shenit and lazharas misas bezdin. So that's what Taisus says. So everybody says, I'm going to say it outside because it's in your WhatsApp group, and I'm not going to have you take out your phones. No. It's a different Reb Chaim. Two different svarim of Reb Chaim. This is Reb Chaim in stencil, and that's Reb Chaim in sefer. We're very brisk tonight. So listen to what Reb Chaim says. He says he thinks one could argue with Tosfos. He thinks one could argue with our Tosfos. Why? He says Reb Chaim. One second. Maybe I will ask you to take out your phones because I'm not finding this. Hold on. Oh, here we go. Says Reb Chaim. He quotes a Rashi in Makis to try to shed light on this concept of lav shenit and lazharas misas bezdin. So what does Rashi say? De'ikar atam de'ein lokin. Why does a lav that's also given for azharas misas bezdin, for misa, not get malchus? Hu mishum da azhara zu lemisa nemra. It's because this warning was given for misa, velo lemalchus, and not for lashes. That's what Rashi says. And therefore, we actually had this concept already. The Gemara talked about a little bit earlier. The Gemara says in the cases we weren't sure when it's going to be 3 in Motzi Shem or when it's going to be 23. So the Gemara says, what happens if the Edom gave the wrong warning? They told the person, by the way, this is going to get you Malchus, this is not going to get you Misa. So that's what the Rishonim said. It's totally on lav shenit and lazharas misas bezdin, lokin olav or not. The same lav, but we gave hasra for Malchus instead of Misa. So if you hold like our klal, that this azhara, this iser, is only for Misa and not for Malchus, so then the hasra didn't work. What the Edom gave, they goofed. They messed up. The fact that you gave hasra for Malchus doesn't work, right? And that's exactly what Rashi is saying over here, that since the azhara, since the Torah's iser was introduced for Misa purposes, so you can't have a default and say that it's for Malchus purposes. It's already used up as if. It's already designated for Misa, so therefore in those situations that you whether you gave Hasra for Malchus or you want to give them Malchus for the same Isser, you can't do it because it was delivered for Misa. Says Reb Chaim, there might be one exception to the rule. There might be one exception to that idea. Kasher Zomam. Kasher Zomam is not like any other Onesh in the Torah. Kasher Zomam is not, this Isser was given specifically for this type of Misa. This azhara, this loisana was given for this type of designated punishment. Says Reb Chaim, no, this is the one area that it's not defined. That it's as if the Torah said, there's an isser to lie, and you're going to get the punishment. What punishment? Whatever. It's as if the Torah said whatever. It's as if the Torah says, kasher zoma. Says Reb Chaim, the idea that Rashi tells us by lav shenit and lazharas, he says bezdin, that this isser is used up for the misa, and we can't now attribute it to a malchus that will not apply definitionally to kasher zoma. Because kasher zamam is this general parsha that whatever you intended to give, that's what you're going to get. There is no specified isser and azhara for a specific punishment when it comes to kasher zamam. Definitionally to hazama. See, Reb Chaim's right. The Gemara reads beautifully. No, Taisus is saying, the Gemara is lav dafka. The Gemara is telling us one deficiency to lo saneh, to the isser of lying as an aid, is that it's a lav shem bo ma'aseh. So Tosha says, by the way, there was also another problem. This lav happens to give you misas bezdin, and that's another reason why you shouldn't have been able to get malchus. That's why I need Ula's drasha to tell me that, by the way, you still get malchus in this case. Says Reb Chaim, no, the Gemara knew not to say that issue, because that issue doesn't apply to hazama. Because hazama doesn't work with the deficiency of lav shenitan lazharas misas bezdin. Because it's not that the lav was designated for a misa. The lav's not designated to anything. It's this like floating punishment. Whatever you said, that's the way we're going to define it. So the Gemara was meduyak hatif, that the Gemara didn't choose that deficiency, and the Gemara chose this deficiency. So Rabbi Isai, but I want to talk in general tonight about the concept of malchus. We just finished the Gemara. The Gemara, at the end of the day, the Gemara happens to go into another drasha that we spoke about last week, we spoke about this week, about Ula's din, about Hazama. We spoke about 2 days in Taisus, whether or not that's Hazama or not, fine. But bottom line, what were we coming to do? We were coming to explain the Mishnah. The Mishnah introduces a brand new category that we just started. It's called Dine Malchus, right? Dine Malchus. How many dayanim do you need? You need 3 dayanim. Come and look at this unbelievable Lechem Mishnah. The Rambam comes in Hilchos Sanhedrin Perek Yud Aleph. I found, 3 Gedolim that came to the same idea, and it's so unbelievable when it comes to the world of Malchus. The Lechem Mishnah was Mechadish this, the Minchas Chinuch is Mechadish this, and Reb Chaim Brisker is Mechadish this. Echad Dine Nefashos, says the Rambam. And the second source on the sheet. No, sorry. This is last week's sheet. I'm not up to the Reb Chaim yet. Everyone have last week's sheet? This sheet. Itai sheet. So I'm going to read it out loud. Echad Dine Nefashos, ve'echad Dine Malkius, ve'echad Dine Galus, hadinim ha'elu shavin ben. So the Rambam saying all the dinim of hasra and warnings and all the principles that apply to Bezdin, everything I applied, they apply to all of them. And then listen to this language. Again, listen to what my words were. Echad dine nefashos, both capital punishment, ve'echad dine malchus and dine malchus, ve'echad dine dalos, hadinim ha'elu, all the lists and halachos that I taught about, the Sanhedrin and the Dayanim, all of them apply equally to all these different areas. Ella, shall malchus b'shlosha. But you should know that the malchus are with 3. So it comes along the Mechem Mishnah and says, that's a weird language. What does that mean? Number 1, what's the Ella shall malchus b'shlosha? Number 2, malchus is not the only thing that's with shlosha. We've just spent a long time discussing Dine Mamanis that's b'shlosha. Comes along with that, Tema u'be'enai. Maishna Ella shall malchus, mashkas of Ella shall malchus b'shlosha. Dari Dine Mamanis namni b'shlosha. The Chitema shemasha Amar shall malchus begimor ritzonim to be in shlosha min ha'Torah. Masha ein came b'monas to min ha'Torah b'chatzagi. Maybe it's that you need 3 min ha'Torah. He says that's wrong because Gzelos also. Everyone agrees that Gzelos needs 3. So I'm skipping down just to save time. So the Lechem Mishnah is very bothered with the Rambam's language of Elisha Malkus B'Shloisha. But this is the Yesod. Look at the first word of the line, Parak Hey Malkus. The end of the line is V'yei Shleimer. Everyone have it? After the period. Everyone with me? After the period? V'yei Shleimer D'Hachi Kamar. Listen to what the Rambam is telling you. It's going to change our whole perspective. D'Hachi Kamar. Dine Malkus Koloimer. Hadinim Shel Inyan Malkus Imuchayev Malkus Imlav V'kabolas Ha'edis V'shar Hadinim Tzrichim Bo Shavim L'Dinei Momedes V'Dinei Gzelos. No, it's true. In terms of the Din Torah and the amount of Dayanim, so to talk about theft and Gzela, Malkus will be parallel to that as well. But listen to what he says. Ela sheyesh yisarun b'dinei Malkus she'afilu shedanu kvar bezdin shechayiv Malkus tzarech od bezdin shel shlosha lemalkus atzmo ma she'en kein b'momenis ugzelos she'acher shedanu bezdin shechayiv l'shalim ein tzrichin od bezdin lepiron hamama. Says the Lechem Mishnah as follows. You have a Din Torah. We had a Dinei Momenis case. The litigants came in front of the Dayanim pasked. Okay? Now, we have a practical issue. How are we going to get this guy to pay up? He's not going to deal with us. He's going to be difficult. He's going to be stubborn. So whatever, we'll get our bullies, we'll get our guys, we'll force the money out of them. We'll figure out a way. Can Bezdin go home for lunch? Can Bezdin go home? Absolutely. Not only that, Dinei Nefashos. You're putting the guy who's Mechalel Shabbos to death. Bezdin hasn't eaten that day at all. The Gemara tells us they can't eat that. If they're gonna administer Misas Bezdin, they can't eat that day. They have to fast. They're starving. They had the Din Torah. They came to the verdict and they said guilty, and we're gonna give him Misas Bezdin. Does Bezdin need to be there, those 23 Dayanim, to actually drop the coal down his throat or strangle the guy? Absolutely not. Go home. You're free to go. You've been fasting. Please, we'll order you a meal today. You know, it's on us. We know you had a difficult day. It was a difficult decision. Says the Rambam, Ela shehamalkis b'shlosha, which means it's not sufficient, the Rambam says, for the Dinei Malkis to be with 3 Dayanim. There's something unique about our Gemara, that what, says the Lechem Mishnah? The actual administering of Malkis has to be done through the Dayanim. The Dayanim have to be there to actually take matters into their own hands and start whipping the guy. It's not sufficient for them to hire someone else. It's not sufficient to get them to get an apprentice for this job. It's got to be them. That not just be there. That's a good question. No, the Mishnah in Makkah says it sounds like them. The Chazan, the Shofet. And Rabbi said this is the pasuk. V'nikla lefanov. It has to be in front of him, in front of the Dayanim. That's what the Lechem Mishnah is coming to explain. So that just puts our Gemara at a different understanding, a different fundamental understanding. When it says Makkos b'shlosha, says the Lechem Mishnah, we're not only learning the Din Torah of Malkus. We're not only learning how many Dayanim you need, but rather you need the actual Dayanim there for the carrying out of the punishment.
But the Mishnah said odd.
Yeah, exactly.
It's what is the odd? I can translate to another bedding. Is it?
No. Old. He's reading the Rambam. Listen to the Rambam. Go back to the Rambam. Lechem Mishnah says he's reading the Rambam. Echad dinei nefashos ve'echad dinei malkios. What's that? The dinim are all the same. Ella, there's an additional halacha when it comes to Malkus that the Bezdin actually has to be there for the Malkus and being carrying out the Malkus. But Rabbi Say, this has halachic ramifications. Now take out the Reb Chaim, the sheet. Do you have an extra sheet or you're done? Because I have it here.
You have it?
Yeah, I have it. Where's the Perek Chav? Perek Chav. Listen to what Reb Chaim says over here. The Rambam says as follows. In Parak Chaf Halacha Beis, I'm just going to give a little background. It's a very important halacha. We've been talking about the concept of hazama. When Edom were caught to be lying, then they get what they conspired to give and what they intended to give to the other party. There is a fascinating limitation to that rule. The Gemara says, a drasha, kasher zamam lasos li'achiv, what they intended to give, velo kasher asa. But not what happened. Happens to be, the Kesef Mishnah gives a fascinating explanation to this concept because he plays out the following scenario. Edom gave false testimony and Bezdin actually killed the person. Now Edom Zomimim come in and say, you were with us, you liar. How could that be? And now Bezdin is stuck and saying, wow, we just killed a guy based on false testimony. And now the Torah is telling us, don't touch the witnesses. Kasher zamam, when it's only a zamam, an intention, velo kasher asa. Now, so Kesef Mishnah says something fascinating. There's two explanations of this. One of the Kesef Mishnah's explanations is just fascinating hashkafically. Kesef Mishnah says, if the Rebbeinu Shalom didn't want this person to get killed, so then the Rebbeinu Shalom wouldn't have set it up this way. Even though technically these Edom, and based on the way Klape, it's a hard Kesef Mishnah to grapple with, but even though they're liars, and even though, based on Dinei Bezdin, we should think that these people, on the more so, Alachas Kama V'Kama should be punished. But no, Hashkacha Pratis comes first. That's one day in the Kesef Mishnah. So now, comes along the Rambam and he says the following Chiddush. That's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, Kasher Zamam V'Loi Kasher Asa. So it's clear, everyone agrees that that applies to the case that I just said, if the guy was killed. Says the Rambam, Parak Chaf Halacha Beis, the second paragraph in the sheet. Nereg Zeshi Idu Alav V'Achar Kachuzmu, he was killed, and then they got caught that they were lying, Imanu Ayisem, Eina Neragim, the Edom do not get capital punishment. Aval Imloka Zeshi Idu Alav, but what happens if the guy got Malchus, and now Edom Zomin come in and say, you liar, you were with us that whole day? Says the Rambam, he cuts off the main part. No, that's the Rambam. He says, Avalim Loka Zeshi Idu Alav? Lokin. Oh, sorry, he says Lokin. What does that mean if he says Lokin? Means we still give what? Kasher Zomam to the Edom Zomim. Meaning you still get what you deserve. Right? What we would have wanted to give, were it not for the Gzeres Agaz Kasher Zomam V'lo Kasher Asa, to the case of Din and Nefashos, but we can't. Says the Rambam, Kasher Zomam V'lo Kasher Asa does not apply where? Does not apply to Malchus. Oh, Mamonis is an excellent question. Mamonis is 2 days in Taisus Mabakama and Davdalid. Because Mamonis might be Efshar B'chazara, it's not really Kasher Asa. Excellent question.
It sounds better.
One second. V'arayvid Hisigolov. Because of Shalokenu. Ravid says, where'd you get this from? Kasher Zomam Aloy Kasher Asa. These are one of the important halachas of Kasher Zomam. Once you did it, it went too far. You want to say Torah is about Kesef Mishnah, is about Hashkacha Pratis, whatever it is, the way the world works. You want to say, oh, Kasher Zomam. This is not Hazama. This is not the Parsha. That's the Ravid's right. Where did the Rambam get this distinction? How does the Rambam argue to say that it doesn't apply to Malchus? Apella. There's no Gemara like this. The Pashas you learn, Makis, this is halacha in Hilchos Hazama. No matter what the situation is, if you're trying to punish Edom Zaymimim, it can't be after it's done. That's the pasuk. Kasher Zamim lasos lochim. Kazamim v'loy kasher asa. Listen to what Reb Chaim says. Next paragraph. V'nira loymar. Tahari matzinu gal be Malchus. Debo inan dafka sheyilke b'fnei bezdin. Says Reb Chaim exactly what we just saw in the Lechem Mishnah. Malchus is different than other punishments. We need Bezdin there at the time of Malchus. U'kedichsiv b'kra, like the pasuk says, v'hipilu ha'shoifet v'hikiyu lefanov. The pasuk says in Parashat Kiseitze that he's going to, the shofet is going to put him on his arms, and he's going to hit him in front of him, lefanov, in front of his face. V'cheinu lashon haram in Perek Tezayin halacha milchos anhedron halacha beis. Malkin b'chzman hazeh b'chol makom min haTorah mifnei shloisha smuchim. There has to be bifnei, in front of the dayanim. You can't go home for lunch. V'lishna de b'fnei shlosha masha de koilu gamzo she'amalkus tia b'fneihem dafka. V'chol ikara shel malkus ki huma rak b'fnei bezin. Says Reb Chaim, and the whole fulfillment of malkus is not, oh, there was a verdict, and now carry it out, whoever is going to take care of the dirty work. No. Bezdin has to be involved. We'll get back to that right in a second. Good. Skip down to the first word of the line, shalaka, because we don't have time, and the middle of the line. V'seder amalkus mavur b'makas daf chav gimel. The first one of the line is chav gimel. The echad me'adayanim. Look at the way malkus is carried out. Echad me'adayanim korei. One of the dayanim is speaking out psukim, really giving. You read through the Mishnah on daf chav gimel, a fascinating Mishnah. It's good to look at. Giving musar to this person that said you went against the bris of Hashem, you went against the loisase, and then he quotes a pasuk v'hurachum yichaper oven, which we're about to say. And by the way, the Magen Avraham says, there's a minig in Elul before Rosh Hashanah, before Yom Kippur, to give lashes with the gartel. That's the minig. The Hasidim all do it. The Magen Avraham says you should say that pasuk from the Mishnah. V'hurachum yichaper oven. This is a whole process and a procedure, and a dayan making this whole musar shmooze to the person who's sitting there, embarrassed, and it's the crud, right? And what's the end? Vasheni moneh, and the other one counts. Vashleishi omer hikio, and the third person says to it. V'hainu mishum da malkus ubifnei bezdin. That's the whole process. Has to be bifnei.
So what you're saying is that this based in the case of malkus.
So what's it? Oh, excellent. Excellent. That's where he's going. V'milku shaloi bifnei bezdin, says Reb Chaim. And if it's a malkus, not in front of bezdin, if we get what? If we ask, get one of the workers over there, the construction worker, do me a favor, give us malchus. We don't want to get involved. That's not malchus. That's not malchus. Umigzeres hakosav divipilo shofet. Ulefi zanira says Reb Chaim. Dikeshahuzmu ha'edim. When the edim are caught lying, vigloi milsa, and it was revealed to us, deloi osa v'loi klum, v'loi nischayev malchus me'olam, that this guy never deserved malchus. Listen, we might get sued. We might have to pay a lot of medical bills, but we didn't do an asiyah. Kasher zama lo kasher asa means there was, even whether it's true or not, there was a halachic status to that din. But there was no bezdin at that time of the administering. Imkein nimtza de'ein ala malchus din maise bezdin klal. This was like 3 rabbanim that get caught by the New York Times that took a person into the alleyway and just beat him up and has no shame yeshivas bezdin on that malchus. Imkein nimtza de'ein ala malchus din maise bezdin klal. Now, the truth is that by din and nefashos it's also sheker. By din and nefashos, when I kill the guy, it also wasn't emes. Yeah, but the actual dinei nefashos doesn't have to be given by the bezdin. It's only malchus that the Gemara is learning out in our sugya that it has to be on bezdin. And if it wasn't a bezdin at that time because it was all false, it was all sheker, and there wasn't actually yeshivas bezdin, and it turned out that what? That bezdin right now just gave some punches to a guy and has no halachic yeshivas bezdin on the maisa. Therefore, the Rambam says, by definition, malchus could never have within it a kasher zoma v'loy kasher asa. It's not kasher asa. It's not kasher asa. To be kasher asa, it has to be an asiyas bezdin. And since it was sheker, it was never asiyas bezdin. Therefore, Reb Chaim argues and says that's why the Rambam knew that there can never be this klal when it comes to malchus, because malchus has this additional halacha that not only does the din Torah have to be judged and deciphered based on the dayanim, and they have to sit and drink their coffee in the conference room and decide what the verdict is, but they got to walk outside. And they got to go to the room that they're going to actually deliver the punishment, and they got to be involved in that, and that's not kasher asa. Reb Chaim's teaching us that kasher asa is a halachic phrase. It has to be a kasher asa of bezdin, and therefore, since the din of malchus is based on what the Lechem Mishnah was medayik, what Reb Chaim says in the Rambam, so therefore it's not going to apply to this. Just give me one more second, Itai. in the back of these new Reb Chaims, there are phenomenal ha'aris. And there was a person I never heard of. His name is Reb Ephraim Ginsburg. Reb Ephraim Ginsburg went up to the son of Reb Chaim. Who's the son of Reb Chaim? Well, there are a few sons of Reb Chaim. Which son? So there was Rav Moshe Soloveitchik, which was Rav Aaron and the Rav's father, and then there was the Brisker Rav. So Rav Ephraim Ginsburg came up to the Brisker Rav, and he said, based on this Reb Chaim, look back at our Mishnah. Dine Mominus Bishloisha. Now skip to our part. Where are we now? We're on the, I need Abe, 6th line. Dine Mominus Bishloisha. And then again, we did Motzi Shemra, Bishloisha, Mipnei Sheyesh Bo Dine Nefashos, so Motzi Shemra is really connected to Dine Nefashos, fine. And then what do we have later on? In Dana, you have Dine Nefashos later. But look at the Mishnah. Makos Bishlosha. Comes along with Ephraim Margolius and says, read the Mishnah carefully. It should have said Dine Makos Bishlosha. Why does it say Makos Bishlosha? He says, according to this Reb Chaim and according to the Mishnah, it makes a lot of sense. Because it's not just the Dine Makos that are Bishlosha. It's not just the deliberation. It's not just the issue. It's not just the cheshbon of whether or not he's chayev malchus. It's also the actual malchus that'll be bishlosha as well. No, but that's all included in the first category. Because it's not. It's a new. No. These are all Dine Mominus. That was just an offshoot of Motzi Shemra was the first. Was it? But once where does the Mishnah say Dine Nefashos? Oh, look at the wide lines. How many wide lines down? Right. What are the main 3 categories? Dine Mominus, Dine Makos, and Dine Nefashos. Right. So by what? By Dine Mominus it says Dine Mominus, the first line. On the 5th of the wide lines, by the pay of the Rambam, it says Dine Nefasha is Be'esrim Shloisha, which we're Amir Tashem will get to there. Capital punishment is with 23. What's the only one that it doesn't say Dine? Malchus.
There is more, by the way, Baruch Chodesh, Baruch Shana, which is
right.
very nice because the Bedin are the one that are doing it.
Okay, good, excellent. Right, they're actually involved in the process as well. Okay.
They're saying Nikudah.
Right.
What happens with them?
Good. We have to get to those sugyas. Good. But I think what Adi's saying there is that they're involved. They are everything there.
Yeah.
The point is, by Malchus, although it's very comparable to Dine Mominus and to Dine Nefashos, and you would think that the same terminology should be used, says Ephraim Ginsburg, he says no. But there's an added chiddush, that the actual Malchus are Rishlosha. And that's what the Mishnah says. The Brisker Rav, the end of the piece says, the Brisker Rav heard this, he's praised it. He says, unbelievable var. He says, this is exactly what Reb Chaim was saying, exactly what the Lechem Mishnah was saying, exactly what our Mishnah is teaching us right now in terms of the Malchus. Yeah.
So according to this Reb Chaim, so let's say someone goes to Beis Din and then they say he's Chaim Malchus. So, and then the Beis Din, they mess up somehow. One of the guys says the wrong thing, they don't go through it, but he actually gets the lashes. And they realize afterwards, oops, we messed up. We should have been saying such and such as we did it.
Meaning not based on Hazama. You're saying a case, Beis Din goofed.
Or some other quirk with Beis Din, something happened. We'd say that's, even though we lashed, we beat him up.
Right.
That doesn't count. They have to do it all over again.
Right.
It's not considered.
Right. I hear you. Right. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Right. It didn't have a din of an Asiyas Beis Din.
What's the rationale?
Again, wait. And now you prove that it was correct?
No, the deliberations of Beis Din were correct. Just they botched the actual execution. I mean, he got the lashes, but they weren't saying the right things at the same time.
Oh no, that's not Makiv. No, that's not Makiv.
Why not?
It's not Makiv.
Of course it's Makiv. That's what.
No. Reb Chaim is saying, from the fact that the parsha of Malchus
has all these, let's say, chalitza, okay? Chalitza has all these different parts of it. Kriyas hapsukim, all these, it still sheds light on the process of chalitza, even though they're not ma'akiv. The facts are, if I don't say any of the psukim at the time of chalitza, it's not ma'akiv, even though I can learn a lot from what the psukim talk about at the time of chalitza and when I do say it. So says Reb Chaim, if the dayanim are, if you have a dayan there, I don't know exactly which things are ma'akiv or not, but I can tell you for sure the kriyas hapsukim are not ma'akiv.
Or something, meaning it could be
Yeah, if there were no 3 dayanim there at the time, for sure, that's ma'akiv, 100%. You were not mekayim what the pasuk says. Yeah, you might actually have, Bezdin might actually have to go to, it's not so simple. There's another sugya. The Gemara says that if the Bezdin gives an additional lash and this guy dies, the Gemara says the Bezdin has to go to Gullus because they gave too much. And if it's not under, which really is the same as we're saying, if it's not under the halacha of Malchus, then what? You just violated the Isser to beating someone up. What's the Isser to beat someone up? What's the Isser for me to punch Adi right now? Where does it say in the Torah I can't punch Adi? Where does it say? I'm not going to. It's not smart. But what's the Isser say? Yeah. What's the Isser that I can't punch? So it's a fascinating Isser. It doesn't say in the Torah, don't punch. The Torah says pen yosef. What does it mean pen yosef? Lest you add to what? Pen yosef. Lest you add to the makos of Bezdin.
Punch in the face.
No, right? No, the Torah introduced the isser to punch, and the isser to hit someone. There's no isser to punch. There's an isser to bruise. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. If Bezdin does an additional punch, if Bezdin does an additional whip, then Bezdin just violated the same issue as me punching Adi. Pen Yosef. That's what the Torah says to Bezdin. Which demonstrates that if it's not in a tzura of Bezdin, and it's not under Bezdin's administration of the Malchus of the Bifnei Hadayonim, then what? Then it's not Malchus. Then they got to go to Golus if this guy dies. What were you saying more?
Huh?
That answers your question? Yeah.
What's the rationale between Malchus and Misa? In terms of requiring a Beis Din to be.
So, that's an excellent question. So I think it's for next week. I think there is a rationale. Reb Chaim would answer to you, what do I need a rationale for? It's a pasuk. It's v'olafano. That's the way a brisker would answer you. I personally believe that there is a rationale. I think that this might get to the crux of a fundamental distinction between different violations of the Torah, which means as follows, and I want to give it away, but the lashes that I get for violating los hases of Malchus might be a different violation of the Shabbos that I'm mechalel to get skila. Meaning we have the perception that we say, all right, certain things are more severe, certain things are less severe, certain things give us an onesh of misas bezdin, and certain things are going to give us lashes. But yet it's very interesting. When it comes to Malchus, there's all these rules. It's got to be with a maisa. It's got to be a lav, not a lav shenitan lazharis bisas bezdin. It's got to be all these different. And when it comes to misa, you don't have all these other rules. And when it comes to chilul Shabbos, you don't have all these other rules. So perhaps there's some fundamental distinction between the onish and the punishment that I get for a misas bezdin avera and the onish that I get for a losase. Again, how do you decide whether you get malchus on an isser? So it's not that the pasuk says, look at the pasuk. How do I know when I eat non-kosher I get malchus? If you want to know how I know that I get misa when I sleep with my mother, I open up Parshas Achrimos, it says it. It says the misa that I get. Yeah, what? When it comes to nevela, when it comes to all these other isurim, when it comes to basar v'chalav, all these other isurim, what is it? It's just, well, let's clarify. Does it have a maisa? Check. Is it a lavani bezdin? Check. Is it a lavani taklase? Check. What do you mean? Why did the Torah just say malchus, yilke? What's going on over here? I think your question is much, much deeper. What in the world is going on with Malchus? Why is it that when it comes to Misas, the Torah by every single Isser said the Misa, and when it comes to Malchus, it never said it? There's a fundamental distinction within the transgression. Within the transgression of the Isser. I'll leave you off with this Bahag, just to think about it. The Bahag, by all these different Isurim of Misa, the Bahag in his Minyan HaMitzvahs, the Baal Halachas Gedolos, he counts the Misa within the Isser. He says, there's a din to the Skila of Shabbos, the Skila of Baal Ovi Adoni. The Rambam in his Shoroshim attacks the Bahag. And the Rambam says, if you're going to count all those Misas, so what does the Rambam say? So count all the Malchus. What about Nevela? What about Basar V'Chalav? What about all these other, so that's the Rambam's question. So therefore the Rambam says, you're wrong. You don't count Misas. There's 4 Misas to count. It's the mitzvah to give Skila, the mitzvah to give Sreifa, the mitzvah to give Hayat. So let's think about that. Let's leave that off as a question, but perhaps that might shed light into a fundamental distinction and something crucial for our understanding that might shed light on why you need Beis Din there at the time of the Malchus. What is the Beis Din actually achieving when they're there? Let's look at also in that Mishnah in Malchus some other fascinating halachos. The fact that if I get nervous and I excrete at the time, or I run away after I got strapped down, the Gemara says, V'nikla achicha. There was a bizayon. He went through that difficult situation. The Gemara in Mako says he's potter. He doesn't actually have to get the lashes. There's something else going on here with the process and the procedure of Malchus that is not the same thing as the process and the procedure of Misa.
And yet you say Malchus was
Oh, so that's the